In the wake of a catastrophic global conflict, a group of individuals emerged whose actions epitomized the darkest chapters of human cruelty. They held positions of power and implemented policies that led to mass murder, torture, and unspeakable atrocities. Utilizing bureaucratic cover and innovative methods, some engineered systems that concealed their crimes, while others orchestrated direct acts of violence. In a post-war world marked by political turmoil and shifting alliances, these perpetrators skillfully evaded capture by exploiting legal loopholes and fleeing to distant lands. Their evasions not only delayed justice, but also underscored the enduring challenges of holding war criminals accountable. The legacy of their actions continues to haunt societies, serving as a grim reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty and the imperative to remember and confront history. Erich Koch. Erich Koch, born in 1896, served as a high-ranking Nazi official whose bureaucratic policies wrought devastation in occupied Eastern Europe. As Reichskommissar for Ukraine and Gauleiter of East Prussia, his administrative decisions contributed to forced labor, starvation, and the systematic exploitation of millions. Although he did not personally commit acts of violence on the front lines, his orders and policies led indirectly to the deaths of countless civilians. Koch managed to evade full legal accountability, living out his later years in West Germany until his death in 1986. His escape from justice stemmed from political circumstances and Cold War dynamics that shielded many former Nazis. Despite the scale of his indirect crimes, his persona remains less notorious compared to those who engaged in overt, personal brutality, yet his brutal legacy endures just the same. Walter Rauff. Walter Rauff, born in 1906, was an SS officer whose technical innovations facilitated mass murder during World War II. He is best known for designing mobile gas vans that discreetly executed hundreds of prisoners by channeling engine exhaust into confined spaces. Despite the brutal efficiency of his inventions, Rauff managed to elude justice after the war, slipping away into the shadows of South America. Allegedly, he found refuge in Chile, where political connections and shifting alliances shielded him from extradition. Rauff's work directly contributed to the industrial scale of Nazi executions, yet he maintained a low profile until his death in 1984. His life remains a stark reminder of how cold ingenuity can be repurposed for unspeakable cruelty, leaving a legacy that haunts historical memory and challenges post-war legal redress. Erich Priebke. Erich Priebke, born in 1913, was an SS officer whose chilling participation in the Ardeatine massacre in Rome left a permanent scar on post-war history. In 1944, his unit executed 335 innocent civilians as a brutal reprisal, a crime that would shadow his life for decades. After World War II, Priebke evaded immediate retribution by blending into post-war society, even living openly in Italy under his own name. It was only many years later that his past resurfaced, leading to an arrest and a highly publicized trial. Despite facing public outrage and legal scrutiny, he lived a long, contentious life until his death in 2013. His story remains a painful reminder of how some perpetrators managed to sidestep accountability for decades. The memory of his unspeakable crimes endures in sorrow. Klaus Barbie. Klaus Barbie, infamously dubbed the Butcher of Lyon, was born in 1913 and became one of the most notorious Gestapo officers during World War II. In occupied France, his brutal methods of torture and interrogation decimated resistance networks and left lasting trauma among survivors. After the war, Barbie skillfully evaded capture by escaping to Bolivia, where he forged alliances and operated under a new identity, even collaborating with intelligence services during the Cold War. His escape allowed him to live clandestinely for decades until renewed international pressure led to his extradition to France in 1983. Tried and convicted for crimes against humanity, he spent his final years in prison until his death in 1991. His legacy is a haunting testament to the evasion of justice and the endurance of terror. Eduard Roschmann, infamously known as the Butcher of Riga, was an SS officer whose actions in Nazi-occupied Latvia left a lasting mark of terror. Charged with orchestrating mass executions and brutal deportations of Jewish citizens, his hands were stained with the blood of thousands. Despite overwhelming evidence of his complicity in atrocities, Roschmann managed to slip through the fingers of justice in the chaotic aftermath of war. Allegedly fleeing to South America, he evaded capture by adopting new identities and relying on a network of sympathetic contacts. While details of his later life remain murky, some accounts suggest he lived out his final days in obscurity. His case underscores the complexities of post-war pursuit and the lingering shadows of Nazi brutality. His escape remains one of history's unresolved. Adolf Eichmann. Adolf Eichmann, born in 1906, became one of the most pivotal figures behind the machinery of the Holocaust. Tasked with organizing the logistics of mass deportations, he played a central role in the systematic murder of millions of Jews. After World War II, Eichmann evaded capture by fleeing to Argentina, where he assumed a false identity and lived in relative obscurity for years. His life in exile was disrupted when Israeli intelligence agents located and captured him in 1960. Extradited to Israel, he underwent a landmark trial that exposed the horrifying depths of Nazi bureaucracy. Convicted for crimes against humanity, Eichmann was executed in 1962. His story remains emblematic of how bureaucratic evil can escape immediate justice, only to be pursued relentlessly by those seeking accountability. Franz Stengel. Franz Stengel, born in 1908, rose through the ranks of the Nazi regime to become the commandant of the Treblinka extermination camp, one of history's deadliest sites of mass murder. Under his administration, hundreds of thousands of innocent lives were extinguished in a mechanized system of genocide. After the collapse of the Third Reich, Stengel evaded immediate justice by fleeing to Brazil, where he managed to live relatively undisturbed for years. His quiet existence in exile was eventually shattered by renewed efforts to bring Nazi criminals to account. Arrested and extradited to West Germany, he faced trial for his role in orchestrating unimaginable atrocities. Stengel spent his final years in prison, passing away in 1971. His life remains a grim testament to extreme bureaucratic cruelty. Josef Mengele. Josef Mengele, born in 1911, earned the nickname Angel of Death for his grotesque experiments at Auschwitz, where he subjected prisoners, especially twins, to inhumane medical tests. His actions embodied the perverse intersection of pseudoscience and mass murder, leaving scars on countless victims and families. After the war, Mengele evaded capture by fleeing Europe and finding refuge in South America, where he assumed false identities to remain hidden. Living a life shrouded in secrecy, he continued to elude justice while his crimes echoed across generations. Reports suggest he met an uncertain end in Brazil in 1979, drowned under ambiguous circumstances. Mengele's legacy is one of chilling scientific cruelty and the enduring impact of Nazi atrocities on humanity. His horrific deeds continue to haunt the collective conscience of the world relentlessly. Alois Brunner. Alois Brunner, born in 1912, was a key SS officer whose role in the Holocaust was both pivotal and chilling. As a close associate of Adolf Eichmann, he oversaw the deportation of tens of thousands of Jews to extermination camps, contributing directly to the machinery of genocide. Brunner's meticulous involvement in orchestrating mass deportations and his participation in war crimes made him one of the most reviled figures of the Nazi regime. After World War II, he managed to evade capture by disappearing into the murky networks of post-war Europe and the Middle East, reportedly finding refuge in Syria. Despite numerous international efforts to locate him, Brunner remained elusive, symbolizing the failure of post-war justice and fully accounting for Nazi atrocities. His escape remains a dark stain on history indefinitely. Heribert Heim. Heribert Heim, infamously known as Dr. Death, was a Nazi physician whose actions at Mauthausen concentration camp remained shrouded in mystery and horror. Accused of performing brutal medical experiments and committing unspeakable atrocities on vulnerable prisoners, his name became synonymous with the darkest aspects of human cruelty. Heim managed to evade justice after the war by disappearing into the labyrinth of post-war chaos, with rumors suggesting he fled to Egypt or other Middle Eastern hideouts. Despite intermittent investigations and persistent whispers of his survival, concrete evidence of his fate has never emerged, leaving his final whereabouts an enduring enigma. His case highlights the persistent challenges in prosecuting Nazi war crimes and the chilling legacy of unaccounted evil in modern history. His mysterious escape remains a scar on collective memory. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below.